do you want to talk a bit about your journey on that with your religion? How do you feel connected at the moment?
For me, with religion, like I grew up again, as I mentioned earlier, within the church and surrounded by the community and the priest, and I was ordained deacon. And we used to go on conventions and trips down to New York and Buffalo and Niagara Falls and Blue Mountain, and we would have all of these great experiences. And I think at a certain point, you become you take it for granted because you're just like, okay, this is just all what I grew up with. It's all the same. Um, and when you take it for granted, you lose the beauty in it.
Hmm.
It's no longer as beautiful because you just see it as regular. And for a while there, I was distant from the church, and I was distant from my faith, and uh, God wasn't on my mind at all. And I lived my life. I partied, I drank, I smoked, I had fun, I did what I wanted to do, and it wasn't. And it's funny how uh, God finds a way to re-enter your life. He finds ways to come back and make you realize that He's always there because
Hmm.
he was always there through that time, even though that you weren't paying attention. He took care of you, but you just never noticed. So I'm at a point now where like I noticed that he took care of me. I noticed that he's continuing to take care of me. And now I want to talk to him and be with him and get closer to him. Like it's almost like when you realize that you've had a really good friend
Hmm.
and like they have always supported you, but you've never really like paid much attention. You've always kind of like brushed them off or like just had like a very casual relationship with them, but then you realize like this friend really does love you and cares about you and wants the best for you, and now all you want to do is like you want to make that person happy because of how much care and effort that they put into you,
Hmm.
right? And in terms of me and my faith, it's the only thing I have. It's the only thing that I can stand on because I've tried standing on everything else. I've tried um, putting more hours at work. I've tried saving money. I've tried doing this. I've tried and none of that stuff brings you true peace. Nothing does like when you build and you have a relationship with God, knowing that He's always there, knowing that you're always taken care of, that you never have to worry about where your next meal is or any of those things by just simply saying like it's in your hands. It's in your hands. I submit my will to you. Whatever you want to do, I'll follow. And not to say that like this is his life that I'm just living, but it's almost like when you're in a car and you're driving and you're trying to get to a destination. Your GPS is working, but if you don't listen to your GPS, you're never going to get to that destination.
Hmm.
So now I'm starting to listen to that GPS a little bit clearly.
Do you believe that God has a plan for everyone, or do you believe it's a plan that maybe you work together in making?
I think in terms of a plan, I think God knows where he wants you to end up.
Hmm.
And he knows the person in his wisdom. He knows the person that Ben is, and he knows the person that Carlos is. And he knows what's gonna make Ben make a left or make a right. So sometimes he'll put those things in your path so that you can make those decisions. We don't always make that right though, and we don't always make that left. But he's hoping that if he brings it in front of us enough times, that we make that decision. In the same manner that I believe the devil tempts you. The devil puts it in front. He doesn't force anybody to do anything,
Hmm.
but he puts it in front of you. And he says, you could. It's not that bad. Who's really going to know? Right. And I believe that's how he kind of tricks us into following his path and living that way.
Mm.
But ultimately, it's up to us who we listen to.
Yeah.
Right. Metaphorically, if you want to look at it, you could look at it as like the devil and the angel sitting on your shoulder. Right. Imagine if you always had those on your shoulders and every decision you made was either for one or the other.
Yeah. I think to put it to contextualize it to what we've been talking about, I think God, from what you're saying, God puts the suffering in our way to test us, and the devil puts these temptations, being the instant gratification, in our way to test us and to try and lure us.
Yeah. Yeah. In a sense. In a sense, yes. Now, I don't think God puts suffering necessarily, and nor do I think God's looking for us to suffer. But I think our ultimate suffering would be us in hell,
Mm.
right? I think ultimate suffering would be us in hell. So it's like if you had a child, right? And he's like, I want to go jump off the bridge with all my buddies. They all do it. And there's all so much fun. And you're like, okay, that's cool, but we don't do that. I don't want you to do that. I'm trying to keep you safe. You in that moment are comparing and saying, well, these guys do it and they're safe, they're fine. Why can't I do it? But your father knows the dangers behind it. It
Yeah.
knows that it just takes one extra jump or one jump the wrong way. You can die or you can get drowned or you can hit a rock or whatever the case is. Um, so I think that's the way God sees it, where it's like he puts certain things in front of you so that you don't, or you think twice, or you learn from it, right? Because certain people, they'll make a mistake a million times,
Yeah.
right? Like like whether it be smoking weed or drinking or pornography or sex or this or that, like we make the same mistakes over and over and over and over again, right? But it's if you stop for a moment and you allow yourself to be like, okay, I'm not going to allow this one. And you control every thought that comes into your mind, and you control the seven deadly sins. You control those, and that's what I believe. Like religion, in any aspect, is to achieve the way like you become stronger in your faith, whether it be Islam or Buddhism or Judaism or Christianity or any of these, is that you have to deny yourself the worldly pleasures,
Hmm.
the worldly things, like you don't allow yourself to fall into that. You allow yourself to rise up above it and say, I am not going to allow this substance or this thing, this worldly thing, to affect me. Like we say in our church, after I believe it's one of the epistles, do not love the world nor the things that are in it. The world shall pass away and all its riches,
Hmm.
but the word of God will grow and multiply, or it will be fruitful and multiply, something like that. Right. So it's the things of this world are going to keep us attached to this world. But for us to be separated and for us to be closer to a higher power, in my perspective, it's Jesus Christ and God, um, is by denying ourselves those things and saying no. I'm not gonna partake of this, even though I want it. Even something as simple as food, because if you think about like Adam and Eve and the original sin, how did the devil tempt Eve?
With the apple.
Food, gluttony, the
Mm.
most basic human right. That's why a lot of different cultures promote fasting, right? Or abstaining from certain food or eliminating certain foods from your diet, whether that being vegan, vegetarian, or whatever, or kosher,
Hmm.
right? The it's all about controlling what you eat and what you put into your body, and by if you're able to control the basic necessity of what I put into my body, you're able to control other aspects of your life. So you start with that. You start with the food.